We are on item 5. This is oral communication from the public. Again, please make sure you fill out a blue card, speaker card. We do have a couple of cards here, 4 cards, 4 speakers at this time. And we'll begin with Lynn Nelson. Be followed by Richard Wynn, and then Sonny Richens.
Lynn Nelson, 27636 Inez Road, Temecula, California, and soon maybe here in Corona. So, I'm inviting everybody to come down on Saturday at 10 o'clock to the sidewalk area of Jack in the Box over at the Eagle Glen Shopping Center, which is off 15 and Cajalco. And to find out more information about the new information about the cell towers. Here we have a quote here that Wi-Fi is an invisible threat to our species. Now another quote here says, of the microwave exposed women, 47.7% had miscarriages prior to the 7th week of pregnancy. And what you want to do is take a look at Barry Trower, Barrie Trower. Just do a Google search on his name. And what you're going to find is that he was a British physicist who was hired by the military to create weapons using microwaves. And that's where he's going to be talking about the miscarriages and tying it in with the threat of our species. Now, a few weeks ago, I was standing out there in front of Jack in the Box and holding up some signs, and then 2 employees came out and they placed these envelopes on my posters. I called the police to report an assault, and before they arrived, the 2 gentlemen came out again with a supervisor, and I have this on my cell phone video, and they attempted to intimidate me and say lots of things to me to get me to leave. And so when the police arrived, I gave a report to Officer Rodriguez, which took a report down. And just last week, I wrote a letter to Mr. Randolph, who is the Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary for Jack in the Box. And he did receive that on Monday to discuss what I believe was an assault and battery, intimidation, and violation of the Bain Act. So I have yet to receive a response. So what I'm doing is I'm appealing out there to the Corona pro-life community to come down on Saturday at 10 o'clock at the sidewalk of Jack in the Box and at the Eagle Glen Shopping Center, which is there at 15 at Cajalco, to defend the unborn from this microwave weapon.
Okay, next we have Richard Wynn, followed by Sonny Richens, and then Richard Rogers.
Richard Wynn, 4656 Valley Glen Drive, here in Corona, representing the Historic Preservation Society. I did a presentation for the Planning Commission a while back, and I'd like to redo that for you guys. And I'm using a historic graph of the city, the historic core of the city. Focus. There we go.
Yeah, I used to live right there.
Not a great picture, but in 1928, that was the hospital, and I'm using this just for information purposes, for comparison purposes. And although you can't see it, this is where the hospital fit in 1928, just one lot on the block. 33, same location pretty much, it ran through the whole block. 64, Corona Community Hospital was a square block. 2012, we have Corona Regional that is 2 blocks basically. We have a proposal currently in process that will expand the hospital to that size. My comment is everything in the EIR, everything in the staff report gives us a footprint that looks like this, more or less. Here's the outline of the hospital development. What we don't have is a big picture view on these decisions that just includes the circle. We never look at the circle. We look at this tiny microcosm that's happening about a general plan amendment, about a conditional use permit, and so forth. So I am concerned that we're not looking at the big picture. Over the years, we've had problems with, let's say, unregulated development in our downtown historic core. The staff, the citizens, we all opted for historic architectural guidelines. In the case of the current issue with the hospital, we have reviewed the EIR.
You have 20 seconds left.
We have reviewed the staff report, and we don't think that the guidelines have been followed in this case. Any previous development on Main Street had to have architectural styles that showed up on the face of the building, and we feel that those things ought to be handled the same way with this building, with this proposal, as with the previous one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Sunny Richens, and then Mr. Richard Rogers. Did you have something for Mr. Nguyen?
Oh, I have a question for Mr. Nguyen's comments, but not for Mr. Nguyen.
Okay,
I can wait.
she's following up.
Is that right? Okay. My name's Sunny Richens, 1031 East Grand Boulevard. I'm an architect, and I'm located in Corona, and I live in Corona, and I live in the historic district as well. And I'm also a member of the Corona Historic Preservation Society. In reviewing the draft EIR for the Corona Regional Medical Center expansion project, I do not believe that it does comply with the downtown revitalization specific guidelines that have been adopted by the planning department and our guidelines for all new development in the historic downtown. I have some examples of these. One is that our downtown revitalization specific plan guidelines state that all new construction and development should incorporate representative characteristics of the surrounding area and historic architectural elements when the area exhibits a positive, distinctive architectural style and or established functional landscape standards. At no time should compatibility of new construction or development be judged against non-historic structures or sites with lesser, more contemporary value. Regular or blatant disregard of historic patterns disrupts the essential character, image, and functionality desired for the downtown. The draft EIR and staff report for the hospital states that that the hospital expansion towers have been designed to bridge the new addition with the existing 1960s era hospital, and in addition to introducing and embellished architectural features. This proposed design not only claims to mimic the old 1960s adjacent building, but is a blatant disregard of historic patterns. On the board is their plan that they have, the elevations, which have no historic value to them. They do claim that how they are complying with the historic guidelines is by incorporating design elements of the commercial block style. This is the commercial block style that is in the design guidelines, and it calls out specific architectural elements such as pediments, cornices, corbels, window lintels, and sashes and such. But as you can see, these architectural design elements have not been incorporated in this. The architect at the Planning Commission meeting said that they had followed the commercial block style with a paint design with this different color
20
along the
seconds
bottom.
left.
Which a paint design is not architectural elements. We'd like to suggest that the City Council send the draft EIR back to the Planning Commission for review and correction, or grant a continuance to have staff look into these and other discrepancies that have yet to be addressed. Just as a resident and architect in Corona, I believe in the the historic guidelines that have been set to revitalize downtown, and I'd like to see them followed. Thank you.
May I ask you, Ms. Richens, can I ask you one question? I love architecture myself, okay? Probably too much of Frank Lloyd Wright in my mind, but I like Robert Johnson when it comes to commercial architecture. Block design, as you described it here in your testimony tonight, has the concept of block design for commercial buildings, has that evolved or changed over time from its earlier inception decades ago?
The block design, the historic guidelines don't say that they have to follow commercial block design. And I would argue that commercial block design is actually not the architectural style that would be appropriate for the hospital. That's just what they chose, and that's their argument that they're following that. I actually think that they should incorporate more classical designs. I don't think I showed this, but I did mark up.
We really,
Yeah,
this
I-
conversation's
was more
not
classical.
appropriate for a
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
Public
I
comment.
just wanted to ask your professional opinion if commercial block design has evolved in terms of definition or representation in how elevations are presented on buildings in the course of their construction over the last few decades.
Yes, I don't understand what your question is, but
Does the
I
look
think
of a
there's
building with commercial block design incorporated into its design, is that defined differently now than when it was when that concept was first developed?
I think we're trying to make it look like it was when it was first developed. I mean, but we don't want to look old, but those architectural elements, I think, are still the same.
Okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, Mr. Richard Rogers.
Madam Mayor, City Council, now we're going to hear about trees. Okay. My name is Richard Rogers. I live at 1037 Meadowview Court in Corona. Peter Flechetti's newspaper column about trees over in our neighborhood, it reminded me I want to talk to the City Council about this. On Meadowview Court alone, there was 25 of these stone pine trees planted. There is 8 left because they became dangerous. Some of them blew down, and they have been buckling the sidewalks and the street. They've had to repair curbs and the street because of these trees. And there was comment made in the newspaper article. Now that's Peter. I don't know. I don't know what he. I don't know what you folks told him, Dick. But they have repaired on Meadowview 2 places where they had to replace the whole street and the curb because of these trees. And now we have. On Meadowview Park and Patricia and Meadowview Court and Melrose, we have 2 mosquito swimming pools. Well, there's always water there because it cannot drain because of the curvature that the trees created for the water drainage. Okay. And there's a comment made in the paper about trying rubber sidewalks. Well, I can see at least one problem is that where the rubber sidewalk joins the concrete sidewalk. And there's also a comment made about planting more trees to replace the ones that have been cut down. And my question was, who's going to take care of these trees? Where are those trees going to get the water? They're going to look for water into the homeowners' lawns and are being overwatered because we have water running off these yards into the street because they're watering it too much. But that's not my subject. And these new trees, if you're going to plant them, they're going to need pruning. They're going to be having some insect control. And I don't really think it would be a good idea to plant any more trees in the parking because I don't know how you would and could maintain them and then furnish them water. So if it was my choice to have rubber sidewalks, I would definitely vote no on that. And if Mr. Lockhart would like to stop by and see me, we could have another discussion, and so I could show him, what's going on Meadowview Park. Last fall, when they were replacing the sidewalk, curb, and street on Meadowview Park, I talked to the workers who were city workers, and they said that I talked to one of the engineers. And he said that they were going to work on Meadowview Court, and
We need to wrap this up.
Pardon me?
We need to wrap it up.
Yes, ma'am. And so if Mr. Lockhart could stop by and see me, I would greatly appreciate it. And
Mr. Daly's nodding his head.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Counsel? Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to address the council on anything not on the agenda?